Yeah, then we had Theresa May, that was David Cameron, then we had Theresa May, who said Brexit means Brexit. We had Boris Johnson, who said, well, don't worry about what Brexit means, we're going to get it done. And I don't think the country has really ever had a conversation, a really serious conversation, about what it is that we are hoping to be able to do when we take back control. And until we've had that conversation, it's no surprise that the negotiations just seem to be lost in a fog.
Right, well, Caroline, what is the UK government hoping we'll be able to do?
Well, I think it gives us control over our own laws, over our own borders. We've all heard those two things repeatedly. I think, importantly, we have to uphold the vote that was expressed back in 2016. And it's absolutely critical that the transition period comes to an end at the end of this year and we can move forward. Now, I think that Richard is actually right. This is only the beginning. There will be years and years of negotiations because there are so many areas in which our relationship with Europe is going to be complicated by having left the single market. Of course it is. But I think the vision that the government has is one where, as a sovereign nation, we are able to set our own laws, that we're not bound by European courts, that we can have a decent trading agreement with the EU, level playing fields and rights over our own fishing.
Wes?
I mean, years and years of negotiation, a kind of a downturn in our economic prospects. I mean, I don't remember seeing that written on the side of a bus. And at the point, one thing I do agree with Caroline about is that after a referendum and 2 general elections, and by the way, having left the European Union, that debate is over. The only question now is whether or not we're going to have a trade agreement with our nearest and biggest trading partner. The answer to that question should obviously be yes. The only question we're facing today is, where is it? Why has it taken so long? Why have both sides not come up with a deal that, let's be honest, will protect the interests of people on both sides of the channel?
Richard?
Well, we need freedom. It's all about freedom. And actually, we've seen the benefit of that freedom just with the ability for the MHRA to approve the new vaccine.
Oh, well, hang on a second. On the no, because we need to clear this point up, because we talked about this last week where there were claims made by ministers that it was because we've left the EU that somehow we were not and no longer under regulations by the EU that we were the first to approve that vaccine.
And
that is not correct. That is not the reason we were first. There may be another reason, but it wasn't because we were no longer under the auspices of the EU, because we still are until we leave that at the end of the transition period on December the 31st.
We have more freedom to make that decision. We went through the MHRA.
Sorry, what does that mean, Richard?
The government chose to use the MHRA, right, to make that judgment, to give that approval, as opposed to what the other 27 nations have done, which is to wait for the European Union's own regulatory body. We've had that ability, we've made that choice, the government's bought vaccines, and we're therefore the first to be able to actually start to use those vaccines from this week onwards. And that is because this government has taken control of key decision makings, and that's a good thing. It's a small example, but a really important example. That's the whole point about taking back control.
And Tim, isn't that the thing, the crux of the matter in terms of Brexit for many people? It isn't about the numbers. It isn't, to some extent, about the economy. It is about identity. It is about freedom.
Well, it seems all rather vague or untrue. I mean, the Medical Health Regulatory Agency has had the power to approve vaccines in a public health emergency since, I believe, 2012. So that's not about Brexit. We heard from Caroline, we're taking back control. The same thing. I mean, I understand this is what the British public voted for, but I think we're still very unclear about really what we're actually planning to do with this freedom. The control over our own rules. What is it that we're planning to do? I still haven't heard anybody explain it to me.
Right, well, Caroline, can you explain it?
Well, I think there's a whole range of issues, and I'd start with farming, and we saw the agriculture bill that ministers have been working so hard over the last few months to get over the line and get done, and that's about making sure that we can set the priorities for our own farmers about how they're going to implement environmental improvements, how we can look at things like stopping live export of animals to the continent. I think that's a great thing. But in every sphere, we will be looking to make sure that it is the UK that sets the standards, that sets the rules by which we're governed, and that we're no longer answerable to the EU. Now, I didn't vote for that. I didn't campaign for that. I think that we're better off part of the single market. But if if I want to see anything this week, then it has to be about getting a deal over the line.
Tim, do you accept that when it comes to farming, those changes that could be made by the government, or could they have been done, in your view, under the EU?
I'm not familiar with the details of the farming changes. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in the UK, we don't follow the details. We don't follow the details of what's going on with the border in the Irish Sea. We don't follow the details of the regulatory agencies. We just trust our politicians to make sensible decisions on our behalf.
Yes.
And I do worry that it all seems to be a little bit vague.